Can you hear me? Am I live? Let me know. Just had a chopper come over again. Of course, I start up a live stream and you get choppers hovering around. Not because of me. It's just coincidental. But it's a strange coincidence. It's supposed to be an excellent connection, so it's telling me, so you should be able to hear me okay, even from back here, because I've got a boom mic on, or a directional boom. Hey Tiff from NY, USA. SK is live, woo. Jeffrey, Joplin, MO. Hello from Oklahoma, Kate. Jessica, New Zealand. Hey. From across the Dutch. Hey from Indiana, Selena. Oh, thanks for that. We can hear you great. Thanks, Teresa. Hi from Illinois, Maru. I think it was. It streamed through pretty quickly. From California. So I'll tap dance a little bit, just for a few minutes, just to let people come along in case they were waiting for it. I didn't do an overnight link to warn people of this video because, quite frankly, I wasn't too sure about how it was going to go. I had a meeting on this morning on Zoom, and the connection has been a bit iffy here, dropping in and out. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, we're here streaming, so I was a bit short notice. We'll let people come on to the stream, and of course the subject today is sources, and I've got some props here. Or what's the good source? And we'll get into that shortly, but we'll just sort of let people come along, realise it's live, do that thing. The lag isn't too bad today. Usually it's a lot worse. Usually it's about 20 seconds, but it's about 5 seconds. So that's pretty cool. Casey Evans. Hi from Italy. Oh, Italy. Bella. Mount Burr, SA. April. How you going? Hello from Southern California, 2%. Thank you for that. So yeah, after we get on to the good source, we'll go for general Q&A. It can be about preserving or sources or whatever, or anything else. Doesn't really matter. Can you please say hi to my partner Gavin in North Queensland? G'day, Gavin. Ready for the dag jokes about sources? Look, yeah, there's been a few flowing through my head, but some of them you can't repeat on YouTube. So keep it clean. Oh, look, I don't mind a bit of an edgy joke on sources and that type of thing in the comment stream, of course, but don't get carried away. Remember, I've got moderators now, so you can't get by them. Hi from Canada, you're awesome. Thanks, Dustin. Hi, hello from Brisbane, keep up the great content. Tut of Heart, that's a cool channel name. Brian, different streaming service then. Edgy but not too edgy. Yeah. Hi from Perth. G'day Natalie. Douglas. Hey from South Carolina. Dad joke. What do you call a train carrying bubble gum? A choo-choo train. They're the ones I love. The cornier the better. Just make, oh God. Alright, so, how many people have we got going at the moment? Yeah, 474 or so, that's cool. Some people might not be that interested in sources or whatever. And I find that on my main channel, you know, this channel, that I've got to be careful not to do too many cooking and preserving type videos, because although I love it, my main sort of audience, they like it, but they're probably a bit over it, and so I tend to put a lot of my recipes, or that's the reason why I made my second channel, Self-Sufficient Me Too, was to put on some of those recipes and preserving. Like, I don't do them all. Sometimes I'll do a cooking and preserving video here, but most of them are now going to go across to that second channel. So if you're interested and you haven't seen that second channel yet, go to Self-Sufficient Me Too. There's the links in the description below to that channel, but have a look at that and you'll see what I mean. I'm still developing that channel. I'm still getting into a rhythm of getting content out on there, and there's 2 videos that have yet to come out about preserving, and that's these sauces here that I'm going to show you. One is a chili sauce. Now, can you see the habanero behind here? Just I think. Well, I'm not going to move the camera just in case I stuff things up, because I'm just not that confident with the streaming capabilities yet, so I won't touch it. But if you remember through my last live streams, you would know that that was full of red habanero chilies. They were coming on nicely, and I've been saying I need to get them picked and made into a sauce, and that's exactly what I've done. I have filmed it. It's going to be a pretty quick and bouncy video. I'm going to whack it on the second channel on exactly how I made it, but I'll give you a quick rundown now and I'll show you it. Here's how it looks. Isn't it vibrant? And I made 4 bottles of it. These are about a 250ml, so 250 to 300ml bottle. So yeah, didn't make a whole heap, but what I used was the chilies, the habanero chilies. See if I can find one that's fallen off here. Yeah, that one there. And right behind it, the cherry tomatoes. So I grew them together and made the sauce out of both of these. The cherry tomatoes adds a little bit of sweetness and extra flavour, and also extra fill and liquid to the sauce. This one here I didn't use because it's got a bit of soft rot on it, and so I just discarded that one. That one can be used for seeds later, and no doubt several have dropped off underneath that plant, and that plant itself self-seeded, and I just left it where it grew. There was only one plant that came up. I noticed it was a chili, didn't know what type of chili. Turned out to be the habanero, so I kept it there, and it's been growing strangely well into our winter, but now it's starting to die back as it should. It's fully fruited. It's going to now go into a dormant stage, and then it might even go completely bare, almost lose most of its leaves through our coldest part of the year, this next 3 months, and then it'll come back good again coming into spring, our spring. So what I'll need to do is give it a bit of fertilizer coming into probably the first week of spring, and start giving it a little bit more water, a little bit more attention, give it a prune back, and that thing will come back beautifully. It'll probably last 3 years before I'd even need to. If I wanted to, I could keep it there for about 3 years as a perennial, and then it's probably best to use its offspring and start some new plants. But yeah, that combination was the main base of the sauce, and this was a bit of extra I had left over, so I just put it in a little jar, and I just get my teaspoon out and then just drizzled on. This morning I had toast for breakfast, some ham off the bone, and butter, and then I just drizzled this sauce over it. You can see the consistency of it, and it was really delicious. There's a few seeds in it. I actually made it with the seeds. I didn't stuff around. What I did was, like, you can take the seeds out to make a less potent sauce, or you can leave the seeds in, and I left the seeds in and went through the process of cooking it up. You sort of simmer it for a good hour. This was simmered for about an hour and a half, and then it simmers down, gets to a nice consistency, and then you strain it through a strainer. You get rid of then most of the skins and the seeds and all that. Some of the smaller seeds get through, which is good because it just adds that little bit of extra tang and heat to the chili sauce. But if you really don't like much heat and you like the tang and you like the other taste of chili, which is why I recommend growing chilies that not just for the heat but for actually how they taste, because there can be quite a bit of difference between hot chilies that are just hot for the sake of it but not flavorful, and then you've got chilies that actually have a nice taste and a good heat combination. But if you want to minimize that heat, you just strip the seeds out of it, and you can water it down a little bit more with tomatoes or other sauces, or even water or vinegar or whatever preserves you're adding to it, a little bit of extra sugar. That can help make that sauce a little bit lighter on the heat factor, but still give a nice taste consistency. Now, I'm not going to slurp this all down, but this has a good instant bit of heat, but it dissipates quite quickly, and it surprises me because if you eat a habanero just off the plant like that, they actually are quite hot, and you'd be reaching for the water, maybe coughing a little bit. Even me, eyes watering. I like hot stuff. You know, I don't mind a good vindaloo, but this has that great balance of flavours. It's got that beautiful chili tang. It's not over hot, and it's one of the best sauces that I've made, but I really ad-lib it, and that's what I wanted to talk about. I can give you this recipe, which I will, but you'll see when I do that video, I'll put it on the next day or two, you'll see that I really did just go through and ad-lib it. I tasted as I was cooking. I added a little bit of sugar. Does it need any more? I actually only added a tablespoon of sugar to this whole mix. And does it need more salt? I tasted. No, it doesn't. Does it need a little bit of extra vinegar? Is it too hot? Do I need to water it down with some more tomatoes or some extra vinegar? You know, and you just go through and just make it up as you go. Some of my best sauces like this one haven't been off a set recipe. You can get ideas online through normal. If you hear something going in the background like, yeah, that's some type of bird. I'm not sure. Some Aussie would know what bird's making that sound. I know it can be quite annoying. It's behind me somewhere, probably in one of the fruit trees. But that's what it is. It's a bird. It's not someone mucking around. Maybe it is someone in the bushes. Let's hope not. But yeah, you can get some idea, but some people get too wrapped around the axles, thinking, oh, it's too hard to make preserves and sauces at home. I don't know where to start. You know, the thing is, you know, here it goes again. Get into it. Just have a crack. You'd be surprised at what you can make at home by just combining several ingredients that you've got around growing in the garden and make it into a nice chutney or a nice sauce or just a quick preserve. You don't even have to preserve it for the long term. You can make a quick pickle in the fridge with some vinegar, add a little bit of water to water it down a little bit, and then add your chopped veggies into that. Maybe add a little bit of pinch of salt, a little bit of sugar, And then you've got that Chinese pickle sort of made in the fridge, and it's ready to eat pretty much straight away or for dinner that night, lasts a few days, and voila. And it's the same with sauces. You know, this here I just made up totally off the top of my head. And I added the cherry tomatoes, the habaneros. I saw how much I had, and I actually blended that up, and then I just by the eyeball method I thought, well, I'll probably make about a litre or so, or or a pint. So I'll probably add a little bit of salt to that, a tablespoon of salt. Sounds a lot, but it's not, because when you're eating a sauce, especially a chili sauce, you're not drowning your hot dog or your food in it. You're just usually drizzling a little bit over. So you're only eating a little micro amount of salt in that. But yeah, so when you're talking in big measurements, it does sound quite a lot, but it's actually not when you're eating it. But anyway, so I thought, yeah, about a litre. Let's work on a tablespoon of salt first, tablespoon of brown sugar, and let's zhuzh the flavours up a bit. Let's get some garlic going. So I added actually a whole clove of garlic to this. I had some leftover Glen Large that I hadn't planted yet, so I used a clove of that. Sounds like a lot of garlic, but it wasn't in the end. It actually balanced the flavours out quite nicely. And I added one onion, finely chopped, but it all got blended up anyway. And out of that, and also a cup of vinegar. So that was the main ingredients. Oh, and also I grabbed some ginger out of the garden, and I added probably a tablespoon or more of ground or chopped up finely ginger, which got blended up anyway and turned into a ginger paste, and just gives a real bit of a hint of ginger spiced through it, which was a slightly different twist. And those flavours combined, it'll get better probably in a fortnight. This is only a few days old. It's turned into a really beautiful sauce. But what I was saying is, if I needed to add more, I tasted as I go, and I actually didn't feel like I needed to add more salt. Oh, I had juice of 2 lemons from our My Lemon tree, because I wanted to, I really like those peri-peri sauces, you know, those Nando's type sauces, and I like the hint of lemon, and so the 2 lemons not only added a bit of fill, but it gave that lemony flavour to it. And yeah, if it needed more of those balanced things, like if it needed a bit more sugar to balance out the acidity or balance out the heat, or it needed a bit more tomatoes and vinegar to thin it out a bit so it wasn't so heavy, wasn't so maybe thick and that type of thing, then you can add those in little amounts as you go, as you're cooking, as you're doing the process, so that you're not all of a sudden ruining the whole batch. You're just slowly adding those things as you go, like a cook does. Typically, they start off small, a bit of seasoning, and then they'll taste as they're cooking. Oh, it needs a little bit more, but they don't just put a whole heap in to start off with, because then you're buggered. You can't take it out once you put it in there. And that's how I've made that. The other thing that I need to do, the other video, is on this woozy sauce. And if you saw my original channel trailer for this year, you'll see that this features in it. The woozy sauce is in this. And so I've been meaning to put this video out for a long time. It's just sitting there ready to go, really, all filmed of course and all that, and on the editing line, but I just haven't had an opportunity to put it out there yet, but I will do that very shortly as well. I think there was a duck that was making that sound. The wood ducks around here, it's mating season, and they're starting to raise little ones, so they're fairly active, and they love our yard because we've got water, we've got fruit that, you know, can be accessed if it falls off a tree, the odd citrus, but there's plenty of nice grass to eat and things to nibble and things to snack on around the garden. They don't destroy anything, they're really good to have. You often see them now in the next month or so, you'll see them with their littlies and they'll be wandering around. I've done a few videos where wood ducks are featured in it. One ages ago, it's a pretty poor video, not great imagery, but I showed how one of them was, I actually didn't know they were there, and I was walking down the back to get to the chickens, and I see this duck flopping around like a fish out of water on the ground, and I thought there was something wrong with it. And as I walked towards it, it then got up, started waddling away, and then flew off. And then I realised I'd been done. What it was doing, it was a decoy, and it was doing these ones, acting like it was buggered, because it had its family with the mother duck over the other side, and where I was walking, I was going to walk right into them. So it decoyed me off, and it did a great job at it. I had time to get my camera out and film this thing having a go, having a fit, and then I realised, yeah, what had happened. Turn around, and then a mother duck off with the ducklings, getting a chance to get away. Very clever, hey? But anyway, what am I talking about? Yeah, it flew over. Okay, so this Woozy sauce here, this was off a recipe. So some sauces, yeah, you might want to follow a specific recipe and then bastardise it. So this one here is a recipe that my wife Nina got from a colleague of how to make Worcestershire sauce. Made it with our own plums. We had got 4 kilograms of plums, made about 20 bottles of this Worcestershire sauce. But you add treacle to it, and you add a certain amount of sugar and other things to it, and vinegar as well to it, plus of course your plums. And I don't think I even pitted them. I think they just threw them in, and then you strain it through. And depending on the consistency you want, whatever strainer you use, you can get a thicker Woozy sauce or a thinner one. You might be familiar with the Holbrook's Worcestershire sauce, which doesn't look like this. It's much darker, and it's almost like a soy, but it's really thin. Whereas this is quite a bit thicker, because I just wanted more of the plum fibre to come through, and it's really nice. But I also added some chilies to it, just to get a little bit of extra heat in there. And I was surprised I didn't actually add enough chili. Because it didn't have it's got a slight tinge of heat, which is what the family likes, but I actually like a little bit more hotter. And I was hoping for some people call Worcestershire hot sauce here in Australia. But it's not hot at all. Most Worcestershire sauces I've ever tried aren't hot. I don't know how they can be unless you do add chilies to it. But that is so Worcestershire sauce like. And if I mix it with that little bit of chili that was left on there from that other sauce, that's actually good. Give me an idea. Maybe a little bit of Woozy, a little bit of that chili. Perfect. That'll go nice on a steak. But yeah, you get what I mean. You can bastardise recipes that people give you or you find online, and just by adding a few extra ingredients to your taste, and you can make some really wonderful sauces. So how are we travelling? I see my computer's gone off again. Oh, someone told me I need to stop the screensaver thing. Yeah, I better do that. I better do that. I will do. Oh, well, at least I'm still here. Woozy sauce. Yeah, that's it. Alright, we might as well go on to some questions then. I started later again, by the way, because I did have a meeting on this morning on Zoom, talking about preserving. Is that my phone going off? I should have put that on mute. But talking about preserving, I was talking to a company about preserving. And I'll just turn my phone off so that doesn't annoy us again. But yeah, preserving is a big part of homesteading, so you know, it makes sense to talk about it, even though it's probably not one of the biggest subjects out there just at the moment. It's growing. The industry itself online is growing. There's a lot of interest in it. I'm getting contacted, like I just said, by people in the preserving industry that want to get their products out there because they see growth in it, and they also want to then tap into that growth and promote their products more and maybe over others or whatever. But there's that slow growth in preserving. More and more people are starting to get into preserving their own produce and working on their own backyard to, as more of a, not just a lifestyle thing, but that's probably one of the biggest parts of it, but also as an insurance thing. The world, I'm not a doomsdayer, but the world is a little bit up and down at the moment. People are feeling a little bit insecure, and this can give you a bit of security, having some food in your own backyard, even if it's a bunch of herbs. It's one less thing that you have to rely on someone else to grow for you. But of course you've got to do that work. And I've been doing a lot of work in the backyard at the moment. Feel free to start asking some questions if you want about sources or in general, but those beds that I put in, you would have seen those latest videos. I'm starting to fill them now. I'll just show you. You might be able to see it. I'll be able to see it from here. One of those skinny beds, I've leveled them all off, and I've started filling them with the bottom 3/4. I'm filling them with a wood chip, and then the top is a good topsoil. And then I'll add some extras to that after. You might have noticed that I've got a little bit of a limp. Callum, if you're watching, how you going, mate? I was playing Callum in tennis on Monday night, and what happened was one of the balls went out of the court. Someone hit it over the fence, and so one of the other guys who wasn't playing at that time, I play comp tennis on a Monday night here, and so they went out to get it and left us with one ball. We just have 2 balls per court, and so the guy said, I said I'll just serve with the one, you know, because I was pretty confident I can hit my first serve in. I shouldn't have been, but you know, I was pretty confident. I said, look, let's not hold the game up. I said, are you sure? Callum was on the other side, and I said, yeah, go, I'll go for it. So threw the ball up and rolled the first one in, 3/4 pace, no problems. Actually surprised myself that under that pressure with just the one ball, I actually got the first serve in at 3/4 pace. Had the point, that was cool. And then I went and served on the juice court, and I threw the ball up, and as I threw the ball up, I felt this whack in my upper thigh, in my top of my quad here. And so I immediately assumed that the person who got the ball had lobbed the ball over the fence back towards us and thrown the ball back into the court, and it's hit me in the top of the leg. So I've held up play because I'd served that ball, and it had actually gone in 2 first serves in a row with one ball, and it actually went in. They returned, and I stopped thinking that there was another ball in here. And so I'm looking around. The guys, Callum and his partner across, are going, are you right, Mark? And I went, yeah. And I'm looking around and I'm confused. I'm thinking, there's no other ball here. But then I'm thinking, why did that hurt so much? It's like you shoot it out of a rocket and hit me in the leg. And then it dawned on me that something had snapped in my upper quad. I'd pulled a muscle. So I've got this bruise running across the top of the leg, and I had to pull up. Every time I try to reach up and serve and put pressure on that leg, it's sore. So I won't be playing tennis for probably a few weeks until that heals. But it hasn't stopped me from getting out into the garden. Thankfully, I was sitting after that. I got home and I sat on the couch, had a big drink of water, and Nina, and I'm sitting there, and Nina goes, "Are you right, honey?" I went, "Nah," because this will mean that not only I won't be able to play tennis, I've got all these garden beds to fill. How am I going to do that now with a buggered leg? But as it turns out, it's not impeding me that much. It's sore, but it's only really a tennis injury. I can shovel and I can push a wheelbarrow around and all that type of stuff. So luckily I can still get into my exercise in the backyard, and also do what I need to do, which is garden and what I like doing. So yeah, no need to be too depressed over it, but I do love my tennis, so it's going to take me out of action for a little bit. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. It took me 6 hours yesterday to nearly finish off those skinny beds. Those skinny ones along there, 4 skinny ones. If you saw my latest video, you'd know what I'm talking about. I leveled them off and I've filled them up, and I've got another 3 to go with soil, and that should be it. That'll be the video that I'll be bringing to you guys this weekend on this channel. And there might be some other sort of elongated and time-lapse type stuff put on my other channel, and we'll see how that goes. Ashley and Quinton from Canada. Thanks, guys. Yeah, good, Mandy. We're all going good. Tamworth. Mark, can squirrels get into your tall birdies beds? I don't know. We don't have squirrels here. We do have possums, and what I can say is possums are reluctant to jump up and, pardon me, they're reluctant to jump up and get into them. So we've had less problems. If you position these beds underneath a tree, and the possums can then come down the tree and just jump into the bed, that was causing us problems. But years ago I changed the location of our main raised beds and started and orientated them in towards the middle where the rest of the veggie patch was, and then that stopped that problem. I rarely have to net against possums and those larger animals because they don't get up there. I'm not sure about squirrels. I've got a feeling they're fairly quick and active and naughty. I've got a feeling they probably would jump up there, and certain possums probably would too. I just don't have that issue here. And if there was a problem, it's pretty simple because you've got that raised bed and that good framework to begin with. It's easy to put up a frame over it, and I've done videos on that, and then net them to keep the squirrels out. Bendigo Hobby Farm, about young asparagus, whether you should mulch through the winter. If it's the first year, I would mulch, but I'd give it a light sprinkling of mulch. If they've died back, and I know what you mean, because then they'll come up really thin and it could have trouble pushing through the mulch, I would give it a light sprinkling of sugarcane mulch or whatever mulch, maybe not a heavy wood chip or anything. Give it a bit of fertilizer. Let that, whatever fertilizer you want to use, and then some mulch over the top, and then give it another feed in spring, if in our spring, and well, when the season's starting again for asparagus wherever you are. And then they should push through that light mulch. That mulch then, if you just leave it, if you're in a all year round growing environment like I am, the subtropics, you're going to get weeds coming up through it. So a light covering of mulch will help, and your asparagus won't start coming through until usually late winter, and if it's warm enough, but mostly in the first week or so of spring. When it starts warming up, then you'll see the asparagus spears coming through. And if you find then that they're coming through crooked, or you have a check with the mulch and you move the mulch back and it's having trouble coming through, well, then you can then remove the mulch until, you know, a few years, and let it grow through. And then the next season it should be stronger and thicker and be able to get through that mulch a lot easier. Like mine now, I can mulch it several inches deep. Keeps the weeds away through the dormant season, and then it just comes through. It also retains a lot of the nutrients and the moisture and that in the soil, and it keeps the soil nice and permeable, so that it doesn't dry out on top and doesn't be impervious to rain, if that's a word. I think that's a word. But so there's lots of benefits of mulch, but I do get what you mean by having to be careful. If it's really young, you don't want to be impeding that asparagus, those young asparagus spears, from coming through and then dying off because they don't have the energy to start coming through, and your new plants then fail, and you don't want that. Simply Southern Roots from Alabama. Yes, that's true, Jay. Most animal manures are hot and need aging before use. Some you can, I mean, if you're going to rest the garden beds, you can age them in the garden bed, and as long as you're not going to use it, or just put it in a pile and let it age in a pile and then use it in the garden as you need to. Yeah, I'm not sure, Joanne. Thanks for the advice on my injury about using comfrey and some creams and that. I have iced it. It's pretty deep, and I don't think there's much you can do about one of those deeper type of injuries. It might be able to get a bit of physio, but I think the best thing I can do is ice it initially to keep the swelling down, and then use it. That's what I've done with most of my injuries in the past. Use it, slowly gets better, and that's all you can do. For these types of muscular type tears, there's nothing more you can do about that, because it's so deep, I think. But I appreciate the advice. Any advice on growing feed for chickens? Well, your whole veggie garden can be feed for chickens. If you grow a lot of produce, they'll eat, you know, most of it, you know, if you want to. So if you grow corn, for example, or lettuce or whatever, you inevitably, especially if you're growing organically, which you should be doing, you will get some flaws. You'll get the odd grub that might attack a corn cob, or you might get some caterpillars or white moths that might attack your brassicas. And if you find that, you can just pull them up, chuck them down in the chicken pen, and recycle it down there. They'll not only eat all the grubs up, they'll also eat the plants, and it's good for them. It's a varied diet. They enjoy it just like we enjoy a varied diet. That's why chickens like foraging around. they eat plants, they love their grains, and that you've got to give them that staple. But if you want to grow grains, you can grow certain grains for them. I have grown sorghum and I've tested that before. It's easy to grow, especially in our climate. They're not that keen on sorghum as a crop to grow in the backyard for chickens, but I found if you ferment it, put it in a bucket, ferment it with some water for several days, and then give that to them as a fermented type feed, they really love that, and so do ducks. So there's all sorts of different things that you can grow and utilize in the garden that you can give them to the chickens. But I would think of it in the broad terms, as just practical broad terms. When you grow a lot of produce like I'm doing, you always have some type of wastage. You could call it a waste and chuck it in the bin, which would be silly, or you could just call it extra food that has been diminished in some way, or you weren't able to eat or give away or give to family and friends. That excess can save you money on food for your chickens, because they'll eat just about everything. I'm growing jalapeno peppers at the moment from seed for the first time. Any tips? For the first time growing them from seed. I've got actually a couple in a pot that grew really well in a pot. You want a good seed raising mix or a good potting mix to start off with, so that they've got that energy to get to about 6 inches, and then you can plant them out. Or if you're going to keep them in a container, then plant them out into a container with good quality potting mix, you know, that's got good drainage, but also maybe a long-term 3 to 6 month fertilizer inbuilt in it, or just add your own fertilizer to it, and about every 2 to 3 weeks, maybe once a month at the least, and then that'll give it enough energy to be able to get large enough and start fruiting well for you. But in the initial stages, you don't want to overwater them, because you can get leaf diseases and that type of thing, and you can rot the seed and the stems quite easily. So you've got to keep it moist but not wet, and maybe, depending on where you are, make sure the temperature's right. They don't love coming up in really cold weather. They won't naturally germinate, and they don't like it in really, they're quite climate sensitive or temperature sensitive, and I have trouble germinating them when it's really hot too. So I would make sure that it's within that maybe 15 to 23 degrees temperature range, and if it's not, it's Celsius I mean, if it's not, then maybe consider putting it in a greenhouse or somewhere, germinating them on a windowsill where that temperature remains stable, so that you do get good germination and fresh seed too. One ugly man, Mark, it's Kyle from Patreon. You're doing great with your lives, my friend. By the way, I have over 100 plants growing. 100 tomato plants. G'day Kyle, thanks for your support mate on Patreon as well. Yeah, I've seen I have answered several of your comments too. I'm not sure if I answered your last one, but 100 tomato plants. You, speaking of preserving and making sauces, you're going to have to do that, because you're not going to, for sure, even me, I have tomatoes probably every day. I just love them. I have them in some form or another, and tomatoes are extremely good for you. So all of you out there, if you hate tomatoes, I'm afraid you're going to have to get used to eating them, because they are one of the best beneficial antioxidant type foods that you can eat. And look, they're not that hard to grow either, especially the small cherry ones. But yeah, Kyle, 100 tomato plants. Well, I hope you've got a whole heap of bottles and a dehydrator to go as well, so that you can make all sorts of things. Preserved tomato paste, tomato sauce, Italian tomato sauce as well for bolognese, and also sun-dried tomatoes, semi-dried, fully dried, make into a tomato type. You can then grind that up and make it into a tomato, well, salt type powder that you can rehydrate and add also to things, or just sprinkle over dishes. But I think semi-dried tomatoes with some garlic and a bit of basil in a jar, left to sit for a couple of weeks before you eat them in an antipasto, I think you can't beat that. Or even eating that on some nice sourdough bread with that sauce, the oil that's been with it, just slightly drizzled over. Yes. Well, yeah, well done. 100 plants. You're making me hungry, dude. Well, you're the one growing all the tomatoes. I'm not growing that many this year. I've probably got about 8 there, 2, 10. I reckon I've got about 20 to 25. Some Roma, some other different varieties. Some I don't know what they are, the cherries behind me, but other ones that I've added compost to areas, and the tomatoes have just come up, so they're something we've eaten, but I'm keen to see what they are. Some of them are growing really strong. There's a couple in the garlic, and I said last week, someone asked me, you know, could you grow other things besides garlic, and I recommended that you didn't, because garlic is a pretty hungry plant and it likes its sun and all that, and you could shade it out. But I'm really close to keeping my tomato plants that have self-sown in with the garlic, because I used a heap of our own homemade compost. I'm really seriously thinking about keeping them actually in there as an experiment to see how they do grow with the garlic. I know they go well together when you eat them, but will they grow well together? I think I'll do it. I think I'll give it a go and just see, for experimentation's sake, if both plants grow well together. Because I just don't want to get rid of that tomato. I can transplant it, but when you transplant them, they never grow as good as they do where they come up in that spot. Hello from New Hampshire, USA, Mount Washington. G'day. Eaton, 2:30 in the morning in Denmark. Why are you here? I appreciate it, guys. Especially sitting up in the early morning watching this. I do appreciate it. I would like to change, perhaps in the future I'll change the timings around a little bit and see how I go, but I've got to sort out this Wi-Fi first, which is coming next week, I think. And once I get a really solid, good Wi-Fi connection, then I can start playing around with things a little bit more, and perhaps even the timings, to give some other people a go at a decent time. Of course, I can't really film through the night, but maybe I can. Get a couple of spotlights up here. I'm open to everything. Joe, challenging 99 other people that love this channel to send a super chat. When we all do a little, it adds up to a lot. Louisville, Kentucky. That's nice of you, Joe. Thank you. Very nice. Hi from Kentucky, Timothy. No, the Wi-Fi, yes, it's not bad at the moment, as long as I stand on one leg and keep in this one position and don't move the camera. It's like, you know, your phone connection sometimes when you're in a really bad spot. You can get that connection only if you don't move and you just stay in that one spot. That's what I've got here, and I've worked out. I had a couple of issues when I first started live streaming several weeks ago when we did the first one, of this thing just tripping out and dropping out on me. The Wi-Fi connection from the backyard is difficult because my router's in the house, and I have got a sender unit in the shed here, but it gets blocked by the wall, and it doesn't cover the whole back of the property. What I want to do is cover the whole acreage, the whole 3 acres if possible, and that's what I'm intending to do. I've got Warren coming out, a mate who's going to come out and help out with it and do some testing, and then I'll get the equipment and hopefully we'll have a better connection, and then that'll give me more flexibility, and hopefully more flexibility for you guys then, maybe different timings, different areas, different shots of the yard. I was standing on my bad leg too. Pain is just, I won't say it's a construct. I mean, you know, you got to do what you got to do. If you can, always, when I had these really terrible injuries from a parachuting injury when I was in the military, I got called in. The surgeon who treated me thought that my recovery was so remarkable that he used me as a bit of a bunny for several years, actually, of inviting me to seminars that he'd show me to his other surgeon mates, and they'd do talks on my recovery and all that type of thing. But anyway, long story short, one of the key things that he said that he believes helped with my recovery, besides the magic surgery that he did to reattach parts of me and all that, and transfer muscles to recreate a forearm and all that, one of the key things he said was actually my motivation and my exercise. I was exercising day 1 after surgery. This might sound a little bit crude, but I was dripping blood through the hallways of the hospital practically, getting up, moving my arm within reason, and doing exercise straight away, because that's what the physios and the doctor recommended. Because if you don't, within reason of course, and depending on doctor's advice, if you don't use it, you can lose it. And I was told right from the beginning that other people that he's treated didn't use it, didn't stick by a strict physio regime, and they ended up having seized limbs and that type of thing. And I didn't want that to happen to me. I was always been a fairly active person, being in the military. I was super fit at stages through my life, and I just pushed through a little bit of pain, and the gain that I got was that remarkable recovery. Whereas if I was wearing a long sleeve shirt, people wouldn't really know that I've got half an arm, you know. So, and the doctor and myself put that down to working through an injury where possible and where medical advice says that you can do so. So I'm going to be doing the same thing like I've done with many injuries, hammies, my calf, my ankles. If I get injured, I don't go silly, but I still try to do what I do, and with a bit of pain and discomfort, slowly heals, but usually heals up better. Mark, hello from Florida, His Grace. I like the name. Hello from Florida, thank you for everything you do. We love your videos. Thank you, His Grace. We should say Your Grace. Charles Eckert, hey Mark, love the videos. Keep them coming. Watching from Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, New York. Hey Charles. Cool. Starting to sprinkle. A little bit of rain. There was a 5% chance that we were going to have rain. Can you believe it? If it starts to get really heavy, I'm going to have to take some evasive action and get you guys an umbrella. I don't want you getting wet. Drifting Soul Sisters, would you write a gardening book with a sow chart, etc.? Yeah, I have given gardening, I talked about this last week, I haven't given writing a book a lot of thought, and I will do that one day. As far as a grow chart goes, how do you capture all the different locations? I've got some ideas on that, to write a general growing chart, because often you can just go by the feel of and a bit of experience of when to sow, when's the best time to sow. And you don't need to necessarily go by a strict book. But some locations can be a little tricky. But I think to help people understand gardening and get that feel, so that like you can just know when to plant things at the right time without referencing a book, that you can do that through experience like I've done, or you can teach that in a little bit too, by creating, by just getting that understanding of what certain plants like, what temperature ranges they prefer, what conditions they like, and then apply that to that time of year. If you've got growing plants all year round like we do, you know, the simple terms, grow corn and okra in the summer here, grow salad crops, you know, and brassicas and lettuce and garlic and onions through the winter. That's a very simple way of looking at it. There are split in between that, you know, growing cucumbers mainly towards the end of winter, coming into spring but not, you know, and maybe through spring but not into summer. So there are certain blocks that you can cut out of that. Without getting too complicated, I think I could make a book that has a more of a generalized growing chart in it to get people to understand that why there is certain seasons without having to try to cover everybody's season and every location in the world. And of course you can get an idea of when to grow things. Every backyard is different in every area, mind you, because you've got different features. You might have a big shed in the backyard that blocks wind, that turns it into a different microclimate, to slightly different to what your neighbours right next door is. So you just got to assess all those different types of things. But I think if I was to include a grow chart or advice on growing and a grow chart sort of information in a generalised self-sufficiency book that I wrote, it would be quite a general thing to get people to understand that feel of when to grow things. Hey Mark, love the videos, keep them coming. Oh yeah, I got that one from Charles, thanks mate. Daniel Terry, huge fan. I wish I could show a picture of the garden. I've got inspired by your videos. Talking from Michigan, USA. Thanks Daniel. Yeah, you know what, you should jump onto my forum, self-sufficientculture.com. I'm not active enough on there, shame on me. But I intend to, I've been saying this a lot the last 12 months, I intend to become more active on there again. And so I would jump on there, sign up, and start posting some pictures of your garden so I can have a look at them. That's an easy way for me to be able to do it. I often browse it. I should be doing it a lot more, and I should be interacting with people and asking and answering questions a lot more on my own forum website. You'd think I would be. I had to revamp that forum, get someone behind the scenes to start looking after it for me because it was just too time intensive for me. And same with my website, and I'm handing a lot of the administrative duties over to someone else, and I might even be hiring an editor soon for my website so that they can get in control. They can sort of start putting out the information, things that I write, without me having to vet things as well, and without having to vet some of the information or the writings that I get from, say, Clissa, who writes for me too, who's an active member on our forum. Clissa, she's got a wealth of knowledge, and you'll find that there are people, regardless of me not being there as much lately, there are people on my forum that are quite active and answer quite a lot of questions as well, and are really good at their craft of self-sufficiency and just like sharing information. So yeah, anyone that's interested, go to the forum self-sufficientculture.com. There are links below to that, and links from my website self-sufficientme.com to the forum, and let's see if I can't just get back there and get more active on there too, and start maybe transferring some of the email questions that I get as well over to the website, over to the forum, so that they can be answered, and then everyone else can see those answers. Because I've got quite a lot of email questions that I think would be best answered in a forum situation, so that I'm not getting the repeat sort of questions. But if you want to share photos and that type of thing as well, yeah, that's a good way to do it. So let's do that. See if you can't share them over at the forum. Tara, thank you for your videos, guidance. Thank you for your videos and guidance. Thanks, Tara. Jeremy, you have my kids 5 and 7 gardening in their own beds. My 5-year-old was so excited she held up a dirty thumb and said, "I got into it." Thanks. Oh, how cute is that? How cute is that? How good is that? Those types of skills, that type of interest generated from a young age is really, really beneficial. For our kids, we've got lots of pictures of them in the backyard, but they're teens now. They're not that interested. They'll do work in the backyard for a bit of coin, bit of pocket money, but I wouldn't say they're, hi Dad, I want to help you grow some veggies. But what they do, what they're really obsessed about, is fresh, good veggies. And they particularly like it when they come from the backyard, or if they're fresh, or if they're organic, or if they're grown with love. So they've grown with that, I'm hesitant to call it ideology, they're just grown with that love of fresh veggies. And I don't think they would have got that as much if we kept on living the lifestyle that we did. You know, perhaps, I don't know, we were always down that pathway. Even when we were in the military, we were always at the markets and growing something in a small spot. So I guess it doesn't really matter the size of your place or anything like that. I mean, even if you're growing in small containers, it's probably better for kids because they're easier to handle. It's easier for them to grow in. And a small balcony even is exciting to see a small tomato plant come up, or herbs and spices. That generates that ethos of this is easy to do, getting into it, growing veggies at home from a young age, and then that just develops that ethos all the way through into adulthood. And it's sort of like second nature to them to want to eat healthy. They know they're used to eating fresh veg. They're not the type of kid that, you know, hasn't seen a cherry tomato before, puts it in their mouth and hides it underneath the table when no one's looking. They're the type of kids, or, you know, teens that are there actively looking for different foods to try now. They're looking for that next level, something they haven't tried, experimentation, getting all that variation in their diet, which is so healthy and good, not just, you know, in a sense of eating, but and nutrition for the body, but in a sense of adventure for the human soul, to be experimenting and looking at the next thing and what more is out there in the world that I can try. So I don't think this laptop is rainproof. Well, it's not too bad at the moment. When I went in to buy this laptop, the lady that served me, she actually said, do you want the extended warranty with it? It covers accidental spill and all that. And I went, oh, I don't know. How much is it? And I think it was a few $100 extra. I went, ooh, and then she said, hang on. Went out the back, came back, and she brought out this other laptop, which I was thinking, I don't want that, because it looked oldish. And then she opened it up, and there was all these little rice grains around the keyboard and everything, and she opened up it further, and she showed me on the inside someone had spilled their coffee or something over the keyboard, and then they filled it full of rice and left it and hoped that it would recover, but never worked. Yeah, I got the extra warranty. I don't know if you can see it, but the rain is starting to get a bit heavier now. What do you reckon I should do? I could hammer in an umbrella and quickly tie it over your head for the next half an hour, and that way you won't get wet, and maybe drape something over this. I'm happy to stand out in the rain. I'm a rain gardener. I like gardening in the rain. It doesn't bother me. I mean, if it ain't training, it ain't training if it ain't raining. That was the thing in the army when I was a squadron sergeant major. So I still abide by that. Look, I can't afford for that camera to get ruined, so I'm going to quickly hammer in a post and protect that. Can you hear that? I hope that's not too annoying. Rightio, I've got an umbrella. So I'll put that there. Wrap that around there. That should work. You'll see a little bit of umbrella there probably. But how's that? Does that feel better? You're not getting wet? You know, the strange thing is, I haven't lost anyone. A lot of you guys are still here. Yeah, that'll work. It's just slowing down a little bit now, but that'll give me peace of mind for the camera at least. Save your laptop. Yeah, it's not that heavy yet. I'll give it a bit of a wipe down. If it starts to get more heavier, then I'll start draping something over this. Or I think I've got another umbrella somewhere. I'll just hold an umbrella. Overcast but not raining in Brisbane. G'day. Everyone's saying save your laptop. Yes, it's alright, it'll be alright. You're driving me insane, Mark. Laptops can't handle water. I am screaming so hard. Rightio, I'll put something over the laptop. There we go. Well, it's starting to slow down now. Furniture done right. Thanks for that. We've got a sticker. Let's make him cover the sauce bottles next. They'll be alright. A laptop shower cap. Yeah, that's what it looks like. You know what it is? This is one of the filament covers for the birdies' garden beds. They come with the plastic to protect them, like most furniture and stuff. These come with a bit of plastic on the outside. Simon, the CEO of Birdie's Garden Beds, he saw that last video and he was really wrapped with it. Of course, you would if you're a retailer and you've got someone that's spruiking their product who believes in it, which I do, obviously, because I've got a whole heap of them and I really love this type of raised bed. But he said, look, have you got any feedback for me on the use of them or anything we could do better? And I said, actually, for the operational side of it, not really. They're pretty good the way they are. I'm pretty happy with the build, the quality and all that. But one thing does annoy me, and that is some of them had the plastic film on them. It took me ages, like I mean 5 minutes for one sheet to peel off, and it'd peel off in bits and it drove me crazy. Whereas most of them were able to peel off really easy, but I noticed there was a bit of a thicker film on them and they peeled off really easy. You could get them off in just one run, maybe 10 seconds and you've got it peeled off in one piece. So I said, if you're using two types of plastic filming to put on those things to protect them, please use the thicker one in the future so that all of them are like that. But that's about my only gripe that I had, was really part of the packaging, not necessarily the product itself. But he gave me a thumbs up back, so they'll probably fix that up. But yeah, there's nothing worse than trying to peel things off. I got a plucker, a poultry plucker, several years ago, and it came with a film on it, and to this day there's still plastic left on it, where I just gave up trying to peel it all off. It came off in little slivers and I would be there for days trying to peel the thing off, so I just said, I'll stuff it, I'll just leave it. Have I ever used any other types of beds? I have, and I've done videos on other beds, other types of raised beds that I've had to fix up, that, you know, tried to sort of copy these or whatever. Yeah, not as good. I've made my own, of course, out of roofing materials, which are not too bad, and you might be able to get away with it a bit cheaper. It takes a bit more time to do. Of course, I've made my own out of wood. But some of the ones that you can get just slide together, I wouldn't recommend them. I've had to redo them, and I've done videos on that too, where I kept the sheeting, but the posts, the plastic posts and that, I got rid of them and put my own wooden posts in. And so I didn't actually ditch the whole bed altogether, but I had to take them to pieces, refill them basically, and redo them, because they just didn't last. And it's a nice concept to be able to just have a bed that takes 5 minutes to put together, which was their claim, but it ended up being a schmozzle and taking a whole lot longer and extra money to rebuild because they just warped and popped out, and you know, sun damage, no good. Maybe if you had a steel post or something like that, an alu post that you could slide into, but even then I'd be worried that over time the pressure would just pop them out. They'd have to be really robust, and then you'd probably have to be paying for it too, in designer cost and in how much it costs to make them. So maybe these screw-in ones, screw-together ones, are still probably the most cost-effective to make and for the consumer. They're not that hard to put together though. Alright, it's stopped raining. Decal remover. Thanks mate, alright, I'll try that. G'day from Anne from Ohio. How long does one passion fruit vine grow? You could cover, one passion fruit vine would cover maybe 3 meters by say 4 if you let it grow out. But you can keep it to whatever size you want. I've got some down the back that have grown wild, some of the yellow ones, which are still nice eating. The ducks love passion fruit vine leaves, so I leave them grow down there, and I sometimes pull the leaves off because they'll eat all the bottom ones, and then I'll pull the ones off higher and throw them to them. They love them. I haven't actually done any videos or anything showing that. I should on my second channel, just show how much ducks love passion fruit vine leaves. But I've seen them grow up gum trees, good 10 meters high, so they can grow quite a lot. But like most things, fruit trees and vines, you can keep them pruned so you don't necessarily have to worry that it's going to take up too much space. Yeah, you know, finger lime seeds, I just saw that conversation there. If you're going to be waiting for a long time before that plant actually grows to size and then starts fruiting, I mean, you could be waiting 10 or so years. So I definitely would be looking, if you can possibly, be looking to get a grafted finger lime plant. If you can't, because it's not possible to get it in your country or area, then yeah, sure, try to grow them from seed. They grow fairly easily through seed, but you might be waiting for a while for it to fruit. I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, because there's certain things that I've had grown from seed here, certain fruit trees in our backyard, and I have had to wait 10 or so years, and then finally they do start fruiting and they grow well. But it is a fair long time to wait, and depending if you've got time, in that location, you're just starting out and you're happy for that, or you just can't get that particular plant and so you have to import the seeds or whatever, well then of course it's better than not doing it at all, in my opinion. And you might get lucky, and there are ways to try to trigger plants to fruit by cutting pieces of bark, like almost ring barking them, and then you can start trigger trees to fruit earlier. So there are ways that you can maybe make some of these fruit trees grown from seed fruit earlier. David, have you ever tried using fresh chicken manure? Yeah, I have, and what I would do because all I ended up doing was killing my plants, because it's so strong and it breaks down, and then you water it in, and then that urea that's mixed in with it, it's so potent it'll hit the roots and kill the plants. So what you can do though, if you want to get a quick hit with the chicken manure, is you can mix it up with some water. I've done that, make like almost like a compost type watering tea out of it. So you can mix it up with some water, make it really light, a light translucent type tea out of it, and then sprinkle that around the root zone of the plants, and that watered down enough can help. The best thing to do is to leave that chicken manure just rest, or compost it down for a couple of months. I've got that chicken ring outside, a composting chicken ring outside of our chicken pen. So I just pull all the duck and the chicken manure out whenever I'm cleaning out the pen, throw it in that, also throw lots of kitchen scraps in there as well, and the chickens are in that plastic ring, the composting ring, and they're turning it over, worms are eating it, breaking it down, aerating it, breaks down pretty quickly, and then I put it into the garden. How much time do I spend in the garden? Well, it depends. If I've got a specific job to do, like making and filling these raised garden beds, I will try to crush it as fast as I possibly can, because I've got other things that I need doing, like making videos and that type of thing, and being a home dad and other stuff to get on with. So I'll be in the yard. Like yesterday, I was in the yard for a good 6 hours, in between dropping kids off at school, taking them to sport, preparing dinner for that night and all that. So yeah, my arms are a bit sore because I'm smashing it out, shoveling soil and everything. But then other times I can go on holidays for 2 weeks or so, leave the yard as it is, and besides being a bit overgrown, or the lawn growing a bit, and some of the garden beds getting a few weeds in them, have a watering system that pops up, that goes on, you know, twice or 3 times a week. It can just work on its own. Once you've got your things planted, like this garden bed here behind me, I've got things planted. I might look around. I mean, it's well mulched, so there's not a lot of weeding to do. Besides preparing that bed, might have taken me 15 minutes or something. Then planting might have taken me another half an hour to plant the plants out. I really haven't done any work to it except hover over it with a bit of watering, and now it's just growing on its own. So you've got 2 or 3 or 6 of these raised garden beds in the backyard. Once you've got your planting done and the beds refurbished, well then there's nothing much more to do except harvest your crops and eat them. You could be doing a bit of weeding twice a week or something, maybe a few hours a week you could get away with. Me, I'm really obsessed with gardening, so I'm always out, and I've got a big acreage, well not a big acreage, 3 acres of fruit trees and garden projects and everything going on. So I love doing it, I'm always out here. But what I'm saying is, for the average person, it's not a heck of a lot of work if that's what you're getting at. It's not like once you start a veggie garden, you always have to be out there trying to maintain it. It's not at all like that. See you, Deb. Thank you. Aussie blue. What can you do in the garden in Tamworth? It gets cold. not too sure off the top of my head. You could try all those types of really cold crops like kale and cabbage can withstand cold and frosts. Peas to a certain extent as well, I think. Try those types of crops and see how you go with them. You won't get away with tomatoes or any of the sun-loving crops. Iceberg lettuce maybe. So have a go at that and see how you go. As far as someone else asked about sugarcane mulch, how long does it last? Well, probably 4 to 5 months before it starts turning into mulch, you know, breaking down and turning into the soil, which then adds value to the beds anyway. So you get a good season out of a good mulching. Mulchy, mulchy, mulchy. MS, have you found any snakes in your garden? Yes, we have from time to time. We're back on the bushland as well, but even in urban Australia you get snakes. Sometimes they're deadly, other times they're harmless. You treat every snake as a deadly snake in Australia, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So the thing is, snakes, they don't normally, very rarely want to hurt you or attack you. It's like spiders and other things. They're usually trying to get away from you or avoid you. So if the chance encounters of snakes is rare, but you do come across them, and the best thing is just to leave them go on their way. If they're a problem, well then you can always call a snake catcher and they can pull them out of a shed or whatever, or a closed place or a specific area where they're hanging around too much. So you can always do that if you're not comfortable moving snakes yourself, which I wouldn't recommend. But someone sent me an email. They were moving from New Zealand to Australia and they asked, how do I deal with, or do I have a problem with snakes and spiders in the garden? I'm a bit of a spider phobe. I don't love spiders. I think they're ugly things. I wouldn't like to get bitten by one, and I come across them all the time, every day in the garden. But you just live with them because, like I said, most of the time they don't bother you. Snakes, on the other hand, I quite like snakes. They don't bother me at all. I think they're a beautiful creature. But again, I just sort of leave them go. But the encounters with snakes and spiders are really minimal, even in a place that got plenty of them here. You can go looking for them and find them if you want, picking up logs and all that, and you can find them everywhere. But generally they'll stay away, and especially down the back in the poultry pens and around the poultry pens, they're keeping the rodents down. So it's not something that I would like to get rid of. But anyone that has never lived with or experienced snakes and spiders before, like in the UK or Europe or say New Zealand, where there's not as many of those types of angry animals around, you shouldn't be too concerned about encounters with these animals if you're moving to Australia or whatever, or walking around the bushland in Australia. You've got to be aware of them. That's natural, and you should be. You should look where you're walking and all that. But it's so really rare to get bitten and especially die from one of these things. It's not, the statistics is something that should make you not worried about it. G'day from Arizona. Ever tried tomatillos? Yes. Ketol. Yes, I have, and I've got a couple seedlings on the go at the moment. And I think I've got one plant coming up, self-seeded, over in one of my other garden beds that you can't see from here, that I had my Jerusalem artichoke in. And I'm going to leave that keep growing on the side. I do like them. I like making a salsa out of them. So you've got tomatoes, you've got tomarellos, which is like the tree tomato, which I've grown, which has that lovely fruit, and they've got these big beautiful tomato-like leaves. Well, they're part of the tomato family. And then the tomatillos, which are the more Mexican type of husk tomato type thing that have the husk over them, and you can make them into salsas and that. All of them are really great plants to grow and to use in cooking, salads, all sorts of things, yes. And there's so many different varieties as well that I want to try too. G'day from Sonoma, California. What is it, Jules? John Croucher. Great channel. I haven't seen all your videos yet. What is your experience and or interest with crossbreeding plants? John. I haven't intentionally crossbred plants, but I have had tomatoes and chilies crossbreed. They're some of the easiest ones. Some of the brassicas, and you might get an odd type of brassica from memory, but it's mainly from our garden is the accidental crossbreeding of, you know, peppers, hot or sweet peppers, or capsicum or chilies, and also tomatoes. I've had some. I grew once a yellow stuffing tomato, which is almost like a capsicum or a sweet pepper, but it was definitely tomato, and this nice big yellow thing. It did look like a large sweet pepper, and it crossed with a cherry tomato, and I knew that because I collected seed, and the plant that I grew that next season from one of those seeds was a small red, about a medium-sized red sort of cherry stuffing tomato cross, which is really cool. I've still got some of them. I haven't grown them for a while. I kept the seeds from that. And yeah, so I guess that's how most of the 20,000 or plus different types of tomato plants came from, is all these accidental and of course some on purpose crosses between plants to make all these different varieties. But thanks, John. The name John Croucher is very familiar. I play tennis with a John Croucher. G'day from Toronto. G'day. JD, aside from gardening, what are some of your hobbies and passions? JD, well, I've got, aside from gardening, I love cooking, but I suppose you want something outside of self-sufficiency, because there's a lot of hobbies in that. I love fishing, but then that's sort of self-sufficiency too. That's what's drawn it to me, is not just the excitement of fishing and the outdoors of it, but also what it can do. You know, you can combine the fish that you catch with the homegrown produce and have this completely self-sufficient meal that you worked for, which is pretty cool. But I do like the excitement and the adventure of fishing and that type of thing. I like, one thing that not many people do know is I like heavy metal music. I like all types of music. Probably my least favourite is modern pop. I like alternate music, modern alternate, modern metal, sometimes really heavy metal. You know, so yeah, my music taste is odd. So if I'm in the garden and I'm, say, doing the mowing, or there's something that I want to listen to, I'll often listen to heavy metal music, which sort of counteracts the tranquility of the environment that I'm in. But, you know, I also like listening to that type of, you know, heavy techno type industrial music when I'm exercising and jogging. But then I do balance it out with a bit of Chris Christopherson and Johnny Cash and country and western, that type of music as well. So I'm across all areas. But yeah, my main go-to is motivational and heavy metal type music. As far as other hobbies and that goes, I'm sure there's several others, but they're probably the main things. But my biggest one, of course, is self-sufficiency. It sort of always has been, and the outdoors type of life. From when I was a kid, the adventures that I had as a young teen on my uncle's farm and all that, all the way through to my military career for the last 21 years, and the places that I've been and travelled and things that I've done, the odd things I've eaten, through to this now, our own property, self-sufficiency channel, sharing information and conducting experiments and doing as much as I can in that realm. That's my main sort of hobby type thing. Thanks, Jerry. Led Zeppelin still rules. Yeah, I like a bit of Led Zeppelin. I actually like Arch Enemy, one of my faves. Paul, do I still save fish carcasses for fertilizer? You know, in the garden bed behind you here, you can't probably see it, but in this one here, one of those thin ones, we went fishing the other day and I had some fish scraps, and instead of, you know, putting them in the bin or whatever, I just threw them in the base of that garden bed, because I filled the fish here and we've got a filleting station behind the water tank, and I just threw all the waste in the base of that bed and threw soil over it, you know, and soil and wood chip and that over it, and that's going to be food for worms and microbes and add value to that bed. But yes, we don't waste any of the fish that we catch. We eat, and then any of the carcasses I either freeze and we use as crab bait or whatever, or we put it in the garden. And I'm conducting several experiments at the moment, and I'll show you them over the next several months of how I'm using fish frames and that in the garden, besides some of the experiments that I've already conducted on this channel. And yeah, I think you'll find them quite interesting and entertaining. And I am also in the process of making, well, I haven't started, but I've been researching of making our own fish fertilizer. And that's going through the fermentation side of it to making that liquid fish fertilizer that you can buy off the shelf. Other people do make it privately as well, and I've bought some of that before, and you can get all sorts of different types of fish fertilizers that people have made, like on Facebook, or you can get the commercial stuff that they make in bulk as well. there's no reason why you can't ferment it and make it yourself. And I've got a recipe and instructions how to do it. It's been sent to me a couple of years ago actually, and so I'm going to implement those instructions, and I will also show you how I've done it once I've got it all squared away and done. Is the dog Clayton Briggs? Is the dog still around that eats the hallucinogenic frogs? If so, does he still eat them? Yeah, Scooter's still here, thankfully. He's not eating the toads as much. They're a cane toad. They have a poisonous back that if the dog eats them, it's like an hallucinogen. And so, yeah, he occasionally still does do it, but not as much because he's older. And the last couple of years he hasn't done it as much, which is good. It's good for him not to. Perhaps he's kicked the addiction. Let's hope so. Jerry, what heavy metal bands do you listen to? Blizzarus is one of my favourite Australian metal bands. Arch Enemy is awesome. Hail from North Carolina. Yeah, you put me on the spot, Jerry. I was trying to think of them off the cuff before. I actually have to look at my phone because, you know, sometimes you just can't remember. Give me a second and I'll actually go to my music section and I'll tell you the bands that I'm listening to at the moment. One of them is an Australian band that's quite popular. Not Park Royal, that's a motel. Lord of the Lost, I quite like them. A German band called Blue Tangel. Parkway Drive was one of the ones that I really like at the moment. Arch Enemy, Parkway Drive, Combi Christ, Library, Kill Switch Engage. Yeah, that's probably enough. But yeah, Parkway Drive is probably one of the main bands at the moment. Beast in Black, Ailstorm, Powerwolf, Godsmack, and I better not talk too much more about my metal fetish, otherwise I think you guys will probably be fed up with me, especially most of you who aren't into that at all, and a bit probably surprised by it. I think we should start wrapping it up though, so we'll say our goodbyes. I might answer a few last minute questions but then we'll start wrapping it up. I actually got to get back into finishing off these garden beds, getting a video out for you guys on this, what I'm doing. I think you'll find it quite interesting. It's different to all the other videos that I've done about filling garden beds. I'll be making it a little different. I won't give it all away, but I think you'll find it interesting, and I think other people will too, in the general populace, because like I said, self-sufficiency and growing in the backyard is growing. There's a lot of interest, and I expect that there should be more interest coming over the next several months as people start to slowly migrate a little bit more to their backyard, which has happened over this last 12 months, especially during the CV. But I expect that there should be some more surges coming as well, depending on, you know, how inflation goes and how different things happen. I'm not saying that the world is going to go down the tubes or anything, but I'm just saying that there are certain elements that I can feel in the wind that might not be devastating or anything, but just might push a few people to say, you know what, I might be able to do that for myself. rather than relying on someone else growing it for me, or rather than paying this price for something that I could do for a quarter of the price in my own backyard. That type of thing is starting to become more popular, or I can grow it more healthier in a better way, and you know, double finger up to the establishment type of thing. I get that feeling in the air. So yeah, I think more people will be interested in garden beds and how to fill them, and how to fill them, you know, not just a cheap way, but also in a good way that can promote all those types of that really great growing environment at a reasonable cost, to get the best out of the plants that you put in it, so that you can get the most out of it. So yeah, we'll start wrapping up. Key told 5, my first raised beds, a 12-inch water tower blew down, got it for 120 bucks. 3-4 beds for cheap. Thank you for the inspiration. Well, good luck with those raised beds. Sorry about the water tower blowing down. I think I missed a... If I've missed several of your super chats, sorry about that again. You know, I'll try to get a better system going. Rightio, it looks like I think that'll do. We'll end it there. Bye, Mark. See you, Cynthia. See you, David. See you, Alex. Yeah, the chat does get going by fast. I have got slow mode on, but you know, it's great that people are chatting. A lot of it's between yourselves, and I'm trying to read between that, which is even better, because I'd rather people talking between themselves, and I'd rather this be that type of environment that we're in, where we're the community talking, rather than just me sort of performing type thing and answering every question. I think that, to me, it makes me very happy that it's not, the focus isn't just on me, it's the community interacting between themselves, and I'm just facilitating that by hovering around here like a ghost. Alright, I would love to keep chatting more, because I really enjoy this. Yes, it'd be better if there was an easier system for me, like a huge screen that I could just keep reading people's comments and just quickly look to the camera rather than what I'm doing. And it'd be nice if it wasn't raining, but at the end of the day, I do enjoy doing it. I really appreciate you coming along with me for these live streams. We've held about 750 or so people throughout, which is really nice. So I appreciate that, and I think it's appropriate now that the rain is starting to come down a little heavier. I move my laptop so that people don't have to worry about that, and we get out of the rain. So thanks a lot for watching. Bye for now.